Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name's Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Peter Barnes. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Taree Christian Community Primary School, and from Queensland, St Joseph's School, Claremont, and St Bridget's School, Emerald. Could I ask you to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem? Students, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Richard Tuke. Richard Tuke was born in 1886 to William and Elizabeth Tuke of Cumberland, England. He served with the Royal Field Artillery in the British Armed Forces for 7 years and later worked as a farm labourer. In 1912, Richard and his wife Margaret came to Australia and settled in Smithfield, Sydney, where Richard worked as a general labourer, gaining the nickname Pommy Dick. Their son, William Allen Naggs Tuke, known as Allen, was born in December 1914. Richard Tuke enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in August 1915. After a period of training in Australia, he left for active service overseas on the 13th of October 1915. Private Tuke first went to Egypt, where he spent some time serving with Brigade Headquarters before travelling to France to fight on the Western Front with the 56th Battalion in June 1916. Tuke was a handy man to have around. A friend described him as a fellow who would do anything to help us, such as shaving, hair cutting, cooking, etc. He became very popular in the battalion. The 56th Battalion first entered frontline trenches on the 12th of July, and a week later fought its first battle near the French village of Fromelles. The battalion suffered extremely heavy casualties in a battle that is now known as the worst 24 hours in Australia's military history. Private Tuke survived the initial attack. About 6 o'clock in the morning, he was firing over the parapet at the Germans. A large piece of shell came over and struck him on the head, killing him instantly. A friend, Private Emmett, wrote a letter home to his mother saying, "I suppose you have learned with deep regret the death of our Fairfield hero, poor Pommy Dick. I was not far from him, and thank God I came out without a scratch. He will be greatly missed by the boys, as he was liked by everyone, and everyone had a good word for him." Richard Tuke is buried in Anzac Cemetery in Sailly-sur-Lys in France. Under the words chosen by his wife, he answered his country's call. Margaret Tuke never remarried, and her son Alan went on to serve Australia during the Second World War. Their husband and father, Richard Tuke, died aged 30. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Richard Tuke, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and I wish you a very good evening. Thank you.